Welcome back to the Brahmin Word, and we are getting nearer to the end of the life of King Saul. But as we do, we get to a point where Saul is given the opportunity to really truly move on from this obsession with David, because David has the opportunity to kill Saul and he doesn't do it. And so Saul is given this chance to go, oh my goodness, why am I doing? And yeah, we'll see how that goes. So turn to 1 Samuel chapter 24. We're going to look at the whole entire chapter today. 1 Samuel chapter 24, verse 1. When Saul returned from following the Philistines, he was told, behold, David is in the wilderness of En-gedi. So goes back to what we talked about last time, with Saul just thinking that he's finally got David, but then the Philistines attack the Israelites, so he has to go and do his kingly duties. But now that is done, so now he's back to going after David. And again, he thinks that he's caught him. Verse 2. Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men out of all Israel and went to seek David and his men in front of the wild goats as rocks. And he came to the sheepfolds by the way, where there was a cave, and Saul went in to relieve himself. Now David and his men were sitting in the innermost parts of the cave. Now, a lot of people have asked, what does relieve himself mean? Because we're talking about relieving yourself in English, we're talking about going to the bathroom. Well, the Hebrew here actually could be seen as, and Saul went in to cover his feet. But the big part is that actually, you're exactly right. So Saul did not go to take a break or to have a sit down and just to take a breather. No, he actually did go and use the restroom in a cave, which I know sounds weird and sounds gross, unless you hike, I guess. But again, we're the plumbing that we have today was not available back then. This is a wilderness after all. There are caves. You have to go. You have to go. And so, when it says Saul went in to relieve himself, that's truly what he was doing, what we were thinking about it. And so, this would be a very humiliating thing if David not only came upon Saul to strike him down, but did strike him down, but also the fact that he was using the restroom when he got struck down. That would be incredibly humiliating. But David has a chance to stop this back and forth between, or not back and forth, but really this cat and mouse chase with Saul chasing David. And so now we get to verse 4. And the men of David said to him, here is the day of which the Lord said to you, behold, I will give your enemy into your hand, and you shall do to him as it shall seem good to you. Then David arose and stealthily cut off a corner of Saul's robe. And afterward, David's heart struck him because he had cut off a corner of Saul's robe. He said to his men, the Lord forbid that I should do this thing to my Lord, the Lord's anointed, to put out my hand against him, seeing he is the Lord's anointed. So David persuaded his men with these words and did not permit them to attack Saul. And Saul rose up and left the cave and went on his way. So David has a chance. He doesn't take it. He does cut off a part of the robe, which I think for David was trying to get Saul to say, look how close you came to death. And I am taking a part of your royalty with me, per se. Not that he's wanting to be king, but it's just like, hey, you came this close to losing everything, to losing your kingship, to losing your life in a blink of an eye while you were relieving yourself in a cave. That, I think, is the idea that David was trying to do. Whereas the men that were with him, I think, wanted him dead. Like, they didn't want this little square cut off, or triangle, whatever it was, cut off of the robe. No, they wanted Saul dead and gone, because the men of David are also running away, along with David. So I'm sure they are tired as well of all of this. And they're probably scared, terrified as well. What if they get caught with David? Well, it's probably not going to go well for them. It's probably going to lead to their deaths. And so they are wanting to take they are wanting David to take advantage of this moment. And he does, but it's not for the reason that they were thinking. And the grace, or really just the humility that David shows here, is really, really just mind blowing. But for me, it's this idea here. Verse 6, the Lord forbid that I should do this thing to my Lord, the Lord's anointed. Put out my hand against him, seeing he is the Lord's anointed. So, this idea that God is in control of every single aspect of our life. And so if something is going on that we are just really concerned about, we need to go to the Lord, because he is orchestrating every single step around it. We may not see it, we may not understand it, but he is behind the scenes working. So we should have the humility of David and go, look, the Lord is at work. In what way and to what end, I don't know, but I'm going to rest on him and depend on him. And what a great lesson that is from David here. But now let's see what Saul does when he finds out. Verse 8. Afterward, David also arose and went out of the cave and called after Saul, my lord, the king. And when Saul looked behind him, David bowed with his face to the earth and paid homage. Now, you would think after this massive pursuit that Saul would finally end it, because David has just given himself up. Well, Saul does act in a very professional way here. Instead of just going up and just, chopping his head off while he is with his face to the earth and paying homage, he does respect that action of humility. And so I do want to give Saul at least credit for that. Which then leads to verse 9. And David said to Saul, why do you listen to the words of men who say, behold, David seeks your harm? Behold, this day your eyes have seen how the Lord gave you today into my hand in the cave. And some told me to kill you, but I spared you. I said, I will not put out my hand against my Lord, for he is the Lord's anointed. See, my father, see the corner of your robe in my hand. For by the fact that I cut off the corner of your robe and did not kill you, you may know and see that there is no wrong or treason in my hands. I have not sinned against you, though you hunt my life to take it. May the Lord judge between me and you. May the Lord avenge me against you, but my hand shall not be against you. As the proverb of the ancient says, out of the wicked comes wickedness. But my hand shall not be against you. After whom has the king of Israel come out? After whom do you pursue? After a dead dog, after a flea? May the Lord therefore be judge and give sentence between me and you, and see to it and plead my cause and deliver me from your hand. What a beautiful just cry from David to Saul. Like, why are you going after me? I've not tried to usurp the throne from you. Not only that, but he calls him father, which actually would be very common in this age for somebody that had served under a king, to show the king, share with the king as a fatherly parental figure. That would be very, very common. It's incredibly endearing, of course, as well. But basically, he's trying to get at, I have not done anything against you, and the Lord knows that. And I think it's good that David makes sure that he really does this aspect that we talk about a lot in the New Testament, but also in our culture today, of this idea that believers should not judge. Yes, we should not judge, but we also have to hold people accountable. I think David does both here. David doesn't judge, he doesn't act as executioner here, but he does try to hold Saul accountable. He tries to warn him, hey, God knows who is in the wrong with this situation, which is Saul, by the way. And so because of that, that judgment is coming upon Saul at some point. And he makes that clear a couple times. And then I also love, again, the humility of David. He could have said, look, I'm the one that killed Goliath. I'm the one that did this and that. I'm the commander that won you so many battles. But no, verse 14, after whom has the king of Israel come out? After whom do you pursue? After a dead dog, after a flea. That is incredibly humbling. Dogs are seen as more of an outcast than they are today. Fleas are definitely outcasts and are unclean. And so he really is just saying, look, I am humbling myself before you. I don't see why you are coming after me, trying to seek my life. Please stop. And then at the same time, I'm going to give you a warning like, hey, God doesn't forget. God does not forget what you have done against me, Saul, and he is coming after you. He will bring judgment against you. And he is absolutely right. Obviously, at the end of the life of Saul, it ends very tragically. And then, but more than that, Saul's time as king is limited, and his son will not be king. None of his sons will. His kingly line will end, and that is incredibly sad. But that is why it's affirming what David says here in this section. So with that, Saul does respond in a good way. Verse 16. As soon as David had finished speaking these words to Saul, Saul said, is this your voice, my son David? And Saul lifted up his voice and wept. He said to David, you are more righteous than I, for you have repaid me good, whereas I have repaid you evil. And you have declared this day how you have dealt well with me, and that you did not kill me when the Lord put me into your hands. For if a man finds his enemy, will he let him go away safe? So may the Lord reward you with good for what you have done to me this day. And now, behold, I know that you shall surely be king, and that the kingdom of Israel shall be established in your hand. Swear to me, therefore, by the Lord, that you will not cut off my offspring after me, and that you will not destroy my name out of my father's house. And David swore this to Saul. Then Saul went home, but David and his men went up to the stronghold. Now, we're going to get, next week, we are going to get to a time where actually David spares Saul's life again. So, knowing that in hindsight, the words now kind of seem a little bit that they don't really mean very much. But in that moment, how just relieving this must have been for David to hear these words. Not only does Saul apologize for what he has done, he calls what he has done evil in verse 17. He also shows, like, hey, you are much better than I am, more righteous than I am in verse 17. He realizes that David should have killed him by all other means in verse 18. And with the rhetorical question in verse 19. But he realizes that the Lord is behind David at the end of verse 19, and that David will be king in verse 20. Which again, I think are very true words. He knows that. And yet, jealousy keeps coming after Saul and will make him go after David again, which will allow David to spare Saul's life again, which we'll look at next week. But this final request, and really it's not a request, it's actually more of a command, this idea of swear to me in verse 21, he is really asking that not that there is a king after David that's from Saul's line, but that somebody from Saul's line survives. And again, this makes a lot of sense in this culture. You would not keep the line of your predecessor that you have taken over. A lot of cultures, you would probably try to eliminate them in fear of them trying to take back their father's throne or their grandfather's throne, whatever it might be. And so Saul, I think, gives into that fear and says, I think David's going to kill off my line. Well, that's the furthest thing from the truth. David will actually not only help, but he will mourn the passings of Saul and Jonathan, but then he will make sure to not only help the son of Jonathan, whose name is Mephibosheth, but he will actually bring him into the palace, into his own home, and treat him as a relative, basically. So that is really interesting to see. But of course, we will get to next week why then did Saul try to go after David again in chapter 26. But thanks for spending a little bit of time with me today as we see just the humility of David, but then, just a moment of maybe grace from God towards Saul, but then also this warning to Saul that, look, judgment is still coming upon you. And so with that, that's where we will get to chapter 26 next week. But again, thanks for spending a little bit of time with me today. I will see you next week. Thanks.